During the Spanish conquest, Catholic missionaries like the Franciscans sometimes took in the children of indigenous nobles, indoctrinating them by converting them to Catholicism and teaching them to read and write in Spanish. One of these scholars was Diego Muñoz Camargo, the son of a Tlaxcalan noblewoman and a Spanish conquistador. He did his research and interviews of local elders to compile his history of Tlaxcala sometime from 1581 to 1585. Interestingly, this Christianized mestizo chronicler mentioned the presence of men who dressed as women. His commentary on them was not necessarily flattering though, since he called them sodomites and Berdaches or Berdaches. He states that they were few and looked down upon in pre-Hispanic times. Considering Muñoz Camargo was raised by Franciscans, it leads us to wonder whether his views on so-called Berdaches were reflective of Tlaxcalan culture, or was this the influence of Christian ideals about sodomy? A closer look at the passage in part 2 and 3. According to the mestizo chronicler Diego Muñoz Camargo, the Tlaxcalans described the few men in their pre-Hispanic societies who dressed as women as Berdaches and sodomites who committed the pecado nefando and sins against nature. So what are some of the Catholic and European influences in his commentary? First of all, Berdache or Berdache goes back to when the Moors occupied Spain. Before 1492, Iberian and Italian origin Europeans claimed that Muslim princes and rulers kept young boys as sex slaves, referred to as berdache. So this is a term with European origins, not indigenous. Second, the pecado nefando or nefarious sin was a term commonly used to refer to homosexual acts. Of course, sin is a Christian religious concept in itself, as Nahuatl-speaking societies did not have a word that equated with sin. The concept of sodomy and sins against nature were also used by religious authorities to describe a wide range of activities they considered sexually deviant, like bestiality, lesbian sex, and male homosexuality. What about Tlaxcalan influences in this text? We conclude this in part 3. In his history of Tlaxcala, Diego Muñoz Camargo drops some subtle hints about the lives of men who performed as women, who he called Berdaches or Berdaches in pre-Hispanic Tlaxcala. He wrote Berdaches were few in numbers, yet whoever his sources were, whether they were indigenous elders or Spaniards, the fact of the matter is that their presence was significant enough not to ignore. Pete Segal's 2005 article reminds us that Muñoz Camargo lived among Christian Spaniards who feminized homosexuality, so the mestizo chronicler likely emphasized that there were not that many Berdaches in an attempt to reclaim Tlaxcalan masculinity. This was despite the fact that Nahua cultures in Mesoamerica did not associate homosexuality with femininity. And was the presence of men performing as women really a taboo like it was in Christian culture? Muñoz Camargo points out that these Berdaches and sodomitas weren't punished, but they did have to answer to public criticism.